What's up, YouTube? It's Nemo, and if you're familiar with high school basketball, I'm pretty sure you've heard of the OTE, the Overtime Elite League, which is one of the best high school basketball leagues right now in the country. But before it was considered a high school basketball league, it was considered a bridge league to allow guys to go from high school to the NBA. The OTE was created as an alternative route to get to the NBA that allowed players to get paid pre-NIL era, because guys weren't getting paid to play college basketball. So because of this, you had several 5-star guys, several big name players decide to join the OTE. Considering it was backed by overtime, it seemed legit to try to progress their careers. And in today's video, I'm going to split this video into two parts. We're going to talk about the guards in the OTE, and we're going to talk about the forwards and the bigs. But in today's video, we're going to talk about the guards in the first group of OTE to see how, in my opinion, the OTE ultimately failed those guys. So first, I want to talk about the OTE's success stories. And if you're familiar with the Thompson twins, you know that the Thompson twins are the OTE's biggest success story. When the Thompson twins committed to join the Overtime Elite League, they were 4-star prospects out of Florida. Ashard Thompson was ranked 30th by 24/7 Sports, and Amin Thompson was ranked 31st by 24/7 Sports. And being at the OTE, they immediately wowed NBA scouts with their athleticism and their defensive ability and overall their versatility, which led to both of them being drafted in the top 10, 4th and 5th in the 2023 NBA draft. And so far, they're both having pretty successful NBA careers. They're only in their 3rd season, but Ashard has helped Detroit turn things around to become a force in the East. Amin's helping the Rockets turn things around and have some of their best seasons post-Harden. The next success story that I want to get into is Emmanuel Maldonado. Now, a lot of people know him for playing with Prodigy Prep and Julian Newman. He was Julian's sidekick, but ultimately he was the better player. And he decided to take his talents to the OTE. And he was a good player in OTE, could shoot the lights out. The reason why I say he's an OTE success story is because following his time in the OTE, he was able to play professional basketball. Now, while he was in high school, he only had low major offers. I believe he had 3 or 4 offers. So for a guy coming out of high school to end up with 3 or 4 offers and end up going pro, that's impressive, to me at least. At this point, the last thing that I can find from Emmanuel Maldonado is that he's playing professional ball in Puerto Rico and a legit Puerto Rican league. I've looked at some of the rosters, looked at his team last year, and he has guys that played in the NBA that were decent. Guys like Troy Brown Jr., Ian Clark, Kenneth Fareed, John Jenkins, Thomas Robinson. So he's playing in a league that's got good caliber players. The next success story that we have is Jalen Martin. Jalen Martin was a 6'5" wing from Florida, a 4-star guy. He wasn't a top 100 recruit, and he decided to go to the OTE. Now, in the OTE, he was a really good role player. He played his role. He defended. He scored when his team needed him to score. He was an ultimate glue guy for real. And surprisingly, if you watch the OTE in his first season and even his second season, other than the Thompson twins, Jalen Martin has played the most minutes in the NBA out of any other guard in that first group of OTE players. Last season, he played for both the Brooklyn Nets and the Washington Wizards. He played in 16 games, averaging about 15 minutes, scoring 5 points a game, 3 rebounds, and an assist. Like I said, for a guy that wasn't even a top 100 recruit to make it to the NBA is a blessing in itself. And that's why I believe he's a success story, because he wasn't a 5-star guy. He wasn't a guy with a big name. He was just a guy willing to do the dirty work to claw his way up to the top. Alright, next success story we have is Joned Walker. Joned Walker was a sub 6-foot guard who honestly was just a junkyard dog. He did it all in his stint in the OTE. He defended, he playmate, he hit big shots when needed, and ultimately he was the ultimate point guard in my opinion. I love watching Joned Walker play, but prior to his stint in the OTE, Joned Walker was a guy, you can't find his recruiting profile anywhere. You can look on 24/7 Sports, ESPN, On3 Rivals. you don't see anything. However, because of his play in the OTE, he ended up finding himself in the Puerto Rican League, the same league that Emmanuel Maldonado is in. And right now he's in his 3rd year there. I don't think you can ask for any more, being a guy that was playing high school ball and couldn't find a recruiting profile anywhere to play professional sports. So to me, it's a success because he really went from rags to riches, in the sense of he was a nobody in the American landscape of high school basketball, and now he's a professional basketball player, which is something that most people can only dream of. The next player that I want to talk about is Jazion Gortman, who I'm going to refer to in this video as J Gort. J Gort was a 5-star point guard, the number 8 player in the class of 2022 from Kenan High School. He was a two-way guy, struggled with his shot, but really got after it defensively. J Gort spent 2 years in the OTE, and I feel like in his situation, the OTE was a success story, but it also could be a failure story. Because like I said, he was a guy that was ranked 8th overall in his class. And typically a guy that's ranked that high is typically a one-and-done guy that's going in the first round. Whereas J Gort spent 2 years in the OTE and went undrafted. Luckily enough for J Gort, he ended up signing with the Dallas Mavericks, and he got some NBA time, and he spent time in the G League. So he still made it to the main goal any hooper wants to achieve, which is the NBA. I don't think the OTE set him up for the same level of success that he may have had if he decided to go the college route. But right now, J Gort is playing in the G League. He's playing for the Oklahoma City Blue, and he's averaging 18 points a game, 3 rebounds, 6 assists on 30 minutes a game, shooting 47% from the field, 36 from 3, which is, in my opinion, amazing. So I can't necessarily say it's a success story in J Gort's situation, but I can't say it's a story of failure, because he reached the level that every basketball player dreams of reaching. Okay, so the next guy that I want to talk about is, and I might butcher his name, but it's Tudor Somasescu. Now, Tudor played professionally overseas before signing to the OTE. Tudor came to the OTE and absolutely stunk it up. If we look at some of his OTE stats, like in his stint with the YNG Dreamers, he averaged 1 point a game, 1 rebound, 1 assist, shooting 13% from the field. Like, Tudor's time in the OTE was not pretty. Following the OTE, Tudor went back overseas in Romania, where he was playing prior to the OTE, and he's been playing professionally ever since. So I can't say his story is a success story, but I can't say it's a story of failure either. He's still a professional basketball player at the end of the day. In my opinion, I don't believe that the OTE helped him further his career. I also believe Bryson Warren had a similar story to Jazion Gortman, but he was a year younger. Bryson Warren was the number 14 player in the class of 2023 when he decided to join the OTE. And in his time in the OTE, Bryson Warren played well. He was actually one of my favorite players to watch. I believe Bryson Warren can shoot the leather off the ball, and I love watching shooters. And I believe Bryson Warren had the potential to one day be in the NBA. After his senior year, Bryson Warren ended up going the G League route. Right now, he's in his 3rd year in the G League, averaging about 20 points a game, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. He's having a solid G League career. So like I said, I can't necessarily say it's a success or it's a failure. But for a guy that was a 5-star guy coming out of high school, a 5-star guy giving up his college eligibility to come to your program, I feel like the expectation is NBA and nothing else. And up to this point, Bryson Warren has yet to see a minute in the NBA. We've been through the success stories of the OTE. We've been through the people that I believe are on the fence, could be considered success stories, could be considered stories of failure. But these next guys that I want to get into, and in my opinion, are all stories of failed players in the OTE. So first up, we have Luis Duarte, who, if the name sounds familiar, he's the cousin of NBA player Chris Duarte. Luis Duarte wasn't a top 100 recruit. He wasn't even a top 200 recruit. But in his time in the OTE, Luis Duarte looked good. He looked like a real solid player. And that ultimately led him to being able to play professionally in the Dominican League. According to some of the previous stories in the video, you would probably think, well, Nemo, shouldn't he be considered a success story? He was a 3-star recruit playing professionally in the Dominican League. But the reason why I don't have Luis Duarte in that success category is because after playing 2 seasons in the Dominican League, Luis Duarte thought it was best for him to try to explore his college eligibility and play college basketball again. And like I said, the OTE initially was supposed to be a bridge league to bridge you from high school basketball to professional basketball. Luis Duarte went here to get him to the pros, and now he's going back to college. So in terms of the league didn't serve its purpose in terms of his career. Another example of this is Bryce Griggs. Bryce Griggs was depending on the recruiting site, 5 or 4-star guard. Bryce Griggs had blue blood offers. Bryce Griggs dang near could have went anywhere he wanted to go. After a decent first season in the OTE and a subpar second season because he was dealing with injuries, Bryce Griggs ended up being an undrafted player. He signed a contract in the G League, never ended up playing in the G League. He ultimately ended up playing international ball. He's been over there for 2 years, and in his time, his numbers look decent. He's averaging around 11 points a game, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. But once again, Bryce Griggs is now exploring his college eligibility, trying to see if it's a college program that would be willing to give him a chance. In my opinion, Bryce Griggs would have been a failure even if he didn't go back to college, just based off the fact that he was a guy that a lot of people saw NBA talent in. NBA players wanted to train with Bryce Griggs because they saw immense potential in Bryce Griggs, and he couldn't even sniff playing time in the G League after spending 2 years in the OTE. The next player that I have on the list is TJ Clark, who was very similar to Luis Duarte in a sense, because he was shooting guard, not highly ranked 3-star guard out of Covington, Georgia. And during his time in the OTE, I really enjoyed watching TJ play. TJ was one of those guys who was willing to do whatever it took for his team to win. If it was pick you up 94 feet, he was pick you up 94 feet. If it was diving on the floor for a loose ball, he was diving on the floor for a loose ball. And it was just fun to watch, very entertaining to me. After his time in the OTE, TJ Clark was blessed with the opportunity to play in the G League. Now, based off what I could find online, he spent 1 season in the G League playing 20 games, averaged about 3 points a game, a rebound, an assist. And for a guy who wasn't top 100, top 200, top 300, once again, like Luis Duarte, you can say it was a success story. But the reason why I have him in the category of failures is because TJ Clark has been exploring his college eligibility, trying to go the college route. And if I'm not mistaken, at the time of me recording this video, he's committed to Ole Miss to play college basketball for Ole Miss. In a sense, for guys like Luis Duarte, for guys like TJ Clark and guys like Bryce Griggs, the OTE really for them was a waste of time because they spent 2 years in the OTE, went off to their different routes playing professionally, G League, overseas, international, just to come back and play college basketball. When if they never went the OTE route, they could have just played high school basketball and went to college basketball naturally. Especially a guy like Bryce Griggs who had countless amount of offers. The next person we have on the list is probably the most popular player on the list, or at least at one point he would have been the most popular player on the list. And that player is Devontae Cobbs. If the name sounds familiar, it's because he played for Strive for Greatness with Bronny, Dior Johnson, Sky Clark, and he was the guy that was catching lobs, the guy in all the dunk clips, the guy dunking on cats as a freshman. Now, Devontae Cobbs, he was very popular in terms of the internet, but he wasn't a sought-after basketball recruit. ESPN had him as a 3-star recruit. 24/7 Sports had him as a 2-star recruit. But he decided to forego his eligibility and go to the OTE. And after spending 2 years in the OTE, Devontae Cobbs is now playing junior college basketball. Yes, you heard me. Junior college basketball. Now, I ain't gonna lie, he's low-key doing his thing in junior college. But for a guy that, like I said, he wasn't highly sought after, but he had Division I opportunities. For him to go play in the OTE, spend 2 years for a league that was supposed to be helping guys, give guys pro training and helping guys go to the next level, go pro, for him to end up playing JUCO is just crazy to me. And I feel like the OTE really let him down and set his career back. And last, but certainly not least, we have my personal favorite player on the list, Jean Montero. Jean, when he came to the OTE, was a projected lottery pick. He was top 15 solidified. He was the goods. Watching him play, Jean could hoop. And so throughout the season, I remember throughout the season, I felt like him going to the OTE wasn't the best decision, but he had my support because I really enjoyed watching him play. And so throughout the year, I would check mock drafts. He was still first round. ESPN, he was still first round. First round. So I'm thinking, all right, cool. My dog still finna be a first round pick. Go to the league and kill because he really has that talent to me. I was going to say had, but I think to this day he still has that talent. Unfortunately for Jean, for whatever reason, after the combine, team workouts, etc., he went from a guy that was projected lottery less than 365 days prior to ending up being undrafted. He picked up an Exhibit 10 deal in the league, but ended up ultimately never playing a minute in the NBA. If you heard me say his name, I said it with the accent because he's Dominican, and prior to the OTE, he was playing overseas professionally. He went back to play in Spain, and he's been playing phenomenally. If we're speaking about this season, the 25-26 season, in the Spanish league, he's averaging about 14 points a game, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, in 20 minutes. To me, those numbers are beautiful. Especially playing in Europe because you don't have guys scoring 30 and 40 like you do in the NBA. And I believe, in my opinion, he was the OTE's biggest failure because he's a what-if story. What if Jean Montero never decided to step foot in Atlanta in the OTE arena? Is he on the NBA roster today? Because everybody had him going lottery. Does he get selected in a draft? Does he go first round if he never decides to even entertain the OTE? And I genuinely believe he does because I've watched his game. I've seen him kill guys that's in the league. He was murdering the Thompson twins in the OTE just for him to never step foot on the NBA floor ever. Even playing internationally with the Dominican team. If you didn't know, Karl Anthony Towns is on the Dominican team. It's times where I've watched the Dominican team, because like I said, I'm a fan of Jean Montero. It's times where I've watched the Dominican team, and Jean has literally looked like the best player on the floor by a landslide. But I don't think he will ever get an NBA opportunity. And personally, I feel like it's because the OTE let him down. With that being said, I want to hear you all's opinion. Do you feel like the OTE failed these guards and their first batch of players? Or do you feel like these guards just wasn't talented or good enough to be able to make that jump from playing elite high school basketball to making it to the NBA? And if you like the video, make sure you hit the like button, you subscribe, and you share the video with your friends. And until next time, I'm out.